Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Gato and I'm so happy to be back with another video. This time I am showcasing the new Alex Syberia Designs release. There is a blog hop today. This is the card I'll be sharing, but if you head on over to the blog you will see plenty of inspiration. We have some amazing guests as always, so you can find all of that on my blog. The link is in the description below. There is a giveaway as well, so it's definitely worth checking out. Today I am going to be using the Festive Poinsettia from Alex Syberia Designs. This is a Christmas in July release, so you can get started on those Christmas cards well in advance and you won't have to rush in December to get all your Christmas cards done. I am just going to be using the layering stencil today, but it does coordinate with a stamp set and a die set as well. You will find a ton of sentiments in the stamp set that are so fun. I really love the font. There are also some greenery pieces in the stamp set that aren't in the stencil, so it's definitely a good addition. They go well together. They're coordinating products, but these are really fun together. I love the poinsettia. It's such a large flower. I am making this into a shaped card actually. So I am just going to be stenciling today, and I'm also going to do some hot foiling. So this stencil comes together very easily, but I do like to use that trick of using my Misty to line every layer up. So I don't have to do any thinking to line this up. I just pop everything, my piece of paper and each stencil, in the corner of my Misty, and that's it. It will all magically line up. There are 6 layers to the stencil. Basically you have 2 for the greenery and 2 for each flower. Well, it's 2 flower layers, I suppose. But you know what I mean. That tiny flower in the middle has 2 stencils, that large flower has 2 stencils, and the greenery has 2 stencils. So you have 1 as your base layer and then 1 for shading. And to add more shading, I always like to go in with plenty of ink colors on each layer. So that way I have a variation of color or a gradation of color going from light to dark, and I like to use my darkest colors in the center of the flower because usually that's where the leaves overlap and where you would expect some shadow, and then my lightest color at the tips of the petals and the leaves. And I do the same thing when I'm ink blending the shadow layer for each of these flowers or greenery pieces. I just make sure that I go a little bit darker towards the tip and even darker at the bottom of the leaf or the base of the leaf. I almost never used just the stencil, but when this was done, there was no way I was going to add some stamping to this. I think this is already a very detailed image without the outline, so I left it just as is, and that is going to give me the opportunity to hot foil right on top of that flower. And this is going to be kind of a 1-layer card, but obviously we do have to make the card base because I am making a shaped card. This is going to be a poinsettia shaped card. The way I'm making this is I cut 2 additional poinsettias just out of white cardstock, some very sturdy white cardstock, and I just used the coordinating die for that. Now I did figure out how my poinsettia would stand up best as a card. So one side of this flower has 3 leaves and petals that really line up nicely at the bottom. So this is going to be a great bottom of your card. So it's going to stand up nicely. Now it is a little bit tricky to line these layers up with each other. But basically what I did is to the bottom layer, I added a score line near the top of my card where I want the fold to be. And then on the area on all of the area right above the score line, I'm adding some liquid glue, and that is just going to help, or that is going to create a hinge when I add my second layer on top. I don't know why I made that sentence so difficult for myself. I am just checking with my stenciled poinsettia if it lines up nicely, but of course it does because it's die cut. And then I'm going to choose my sentiment. This is the Be Merry hot foil plate set from Alex Syberia Designs. Again, this is new from this release. There is also a die set that cuts out the scripty layer and the shadow layer, but you can use the shadow layers from that die set to cut out your hot foil sentiments. I chose the Be Merry sentiment. I taped that down with some Best Ever craft tape from Spellbinders, and then I'm sliding the hot foil underneath it. This is going to make sure that my sentiment is lined up nicely and nothing is going to shift around. But I did think my hot foil was a little bit too big in some places, and I didn't want to mess this up. Now, if you know hot foiling, you know that the biggest risk for overfoiling is having some angular pieces that are a little bit too large. So a great way to mitigate that is just by rounding out the corners of your hot foil. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be precise. You just don't want a really angular corner of your hot foil that is a little bit too large, because that's probably going to overfoil. And again, I'm foiling straight onto my design today, so I didn't want to mess it up, and I didn't. Hot foiling is always a little bit risky. You never quite know how it's going to turn out. It does get easier with practice, of course, but there's always that little question, is it gonna ruin my project today? But it didn't, so I was very happy with that. I hot foiled that straight in the center. There was a tiny bit of overfoiling just right around the letters, so it basically just made the letters a little bit wider. I took care of that by just rubbing over it with a dry cloth, and I did use a sand eraser very carefully in some places. I say very carefully because it will take away the ink of my stenciling, of course. So I didn't want that. I didn't worry too much about this kind of overfoiling. I don't think it's very noticeable anyway. So I just glued that stenciled poinsettia on top of my poinsettia shaped card, and that pretty much finishes it off. Just as a finishing touch, I'm adding some red embellishments. These are glitter drops from Pink Fresh Studio, and I love these for my Christmas cards. I hope I still have some of these left after December is over, because I do love the glitter drops anyway. But yeah, this is my card for today's hop. Again, there is a blog hop to celebrate this release and a giveaway as well. So that will be linked in the description below, along with all of the products I used today. So check that out. Go leave a comment on each stop of the hop for a chance to win. You can win the full release bundle, or I think there's also 2 15-pound gift cards. That might not be entirely accurate. Make sure to check the description. There is definitely a full release bundle up for grabs. I am now doubting if I said the correct amount for the gift cards, but we'll see. There will be a comment correcting myself if I mess it up. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this card. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to check out the new release from Alex Syberia Designs, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!